The Four Horsemen was not a planned monocle. Actually, the whole team wasn't planned. But again, this is 80s wrestling. So a lot of things, like promos now that are scripted, this wouldn't have happened in today's because promos are scripted. It could have happened, but it would have been planned before.
Guys, this is Santi Numerel, and you're listening to Wrestling Behind the Curtain.
Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time here to Wrestling Behind the Curtain. This is why you should be watching with your boy Kenzo. When we talking stables, we're gonna be talking them for a little minute, as long as y'all keep supplying answers. Because for now I got a couple I'm thinking of, but we need them comments, like, shares, all that stuff to keep the party going, so we can know what y'all want me to do a video on, or if y'all maybe want a little bit more details. Because the first video is on the Four Horsemen. I give a little background, but I'm not gonna act like it's like the most detailed stuff. It's a little quick in and out, get you into the origin of the Four Horsemen and one of the OG stables as we know them. So again, if you're new here, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you're not, welcome back. It's your boy Kenzo the Great. Let's go. All right. Oh, again, if you're not new here, you know how we start that shit with a chop. All right. Four Horsemen, popular stable back in the day with NWA, that's National Wrestling Alliance. They're still around this day, but they were more popular back then. And WCW, which we know is gone, but obviously that was a big, big thing. I believe they also wrestled in Jim Crockett Promotions. Actually, that's not on here, but yeah. So the Four Horsemen was not a planned monocle. Actually, the whole team wasn't planned. But again, this is 80s wrestling. So a lot of things, like promos now that are scripted, this wouldn't have happened in today's because promos are scripted. It could have happened, but it would have been planned before. This happened. They merged together because of last second stuff. Again, this happens today. It usually doesn't work today. When Vince comes in and he tears up a script, don't expect that tag team to last very long. But this was different. So due to time constraints, that's hard for me to say. During a television taping, the production team threw an impromptu tag match on the TV. And after the match, there was an interview with Flair, the Andersons, Tully Blanchard, and JJ Dillon, who was going to be their manager. So it was, again, a brief impromptu match on TV, and then again, there wasn't really much to think about it too much because this happened. It's wrestling, it's the business. But these guys are also pretty good friends outside the ring. So after that, after Ole Anderson was actually injured. After Ole Anderson returned from injury, him, Arn Anderson, his brother, and Ric Flair, who decided to attack Dusty Rhodes. They broke his leg during a wrestling event at Omni in Atlanta. Atlanta is the home of Dusty Rhodes, so that's a big deal. This is 1985. So it was during this interview. After that, Arn said something we don't know. I don't know the exact words. It's lost in time. I'll probably find a video, but basically said, "You have never seen the amount of chaos and havoc as you by this amount of people since the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse," which, if you know, is biblical. It's war, famine, pestilence, blah blah blah, and death. That's the Four Horsemen. That's how you know the apocalypse is coming, blah blah blah. So it was a prior promo. I recommend you go look for it yourself. We might actually do some videos on promos because I'm a promo guy, as I've said before, and that's probably one of top. It's probably a top 10 promo of all time, depending on what type of historian wrestling nerd you are. So that was in September of 85, I believe. The fall of 85 is what I found. I think it was September. I don't remember. I might be making up dates. I don't want to give y'all wrong information. That's when the impromptu happened, and that's when the interview happened after. So officially, in storyline, Ric Flair and his cousins, Arn and Ole Anderson, and Tully Blanchard were put together January 86 with their manager, JJ Dillon. So after Arn's thing, the name stuck, obviously. And during a shoot interview, Arn, again, because he was like, Rick was the leader, he's the big mouth. Whenever Ric Flair was busy being Ric Flair, Arn was a person you'd go and ask questions about this kind of stuff. I think he finished in ring before everyone else that we're mentioning here, because Tully and Arn were both recently still on TV, obviously low key beefing sometimes here and there, but on AEW, if you don't know. But not only do they still work, talk and stuff, but for a while Arn was like the first person to get the ring. Tully was still wrestling for a long time. As you know, his daughter Tessa's pretty famous. Ole wrestled until, I mean, Ric Flair has retired who knows how many times. So that was a common thread amongst them. They didn't know when to hang it up. As most old timey wrestlers, that's a recurring thing. So yeah, so they were friends outside the ring anyway. They lived their gimmick outside the ring. They took limousines everywhere and jets to the cities. Usually, you know, on Ric Flair had a limo. I forgot what it was called. It had its own name and everything. They took that as many places they could go. Gimmicks back then were easier to live because, you know, kayfabe was not what it is now. But even then, like, these guys were buddies. It was how hard it was to be in. I mean, they're kind of assholes. How hard it is to be, you know, heel stable in the 80s. I mean, so that's the original Four Horsemen. Like I said, innovative and they are believed to be innovative in popularizing heel stables. Because yes, we've had stables. It's not the first stables ever. Okay, as we go through this, might find an older stable. I might decide I don't want to do an older stable because I really don't care. This is like the oldest stable I could think of that I cared about. But again, this is like the OG heel stable that was popular because again, heels are not supposed to be. They're the bad guys, so on and so forth. But you know, team ups have to happen. How can you have good guy stables without bad guy stables? And sometimes bad guys, you know, people end up liking them. It's just not new to you guys. Again, if you're watching this video, you're probably a wrestling fan. So according to Jim Ross, who you might know as a commentator, but he was also the executive vice president of talent relations for WWE for a long time. And obviously that's multiple different rules, multiple different companies. You know how that goes with wrestling again. He says in the 2007 DVD on the Four Horsemen, he said, if not for the Four Horsemen, we would not have a DX or a New World Order or $1 million corporation or Evolution. Very important. That's probably gonna be our next video. It's a good transition from this because Ric Flair is also in that one, and he gets a lot of credit. But I think actually a part of the reason, the big reason why they made it was actually to build him up, not for him to build the future. It's actually Ric Flair was down and out. Triple H saw him. DX was kind of gone. Triple H was trying to figure out his next thing. He's like, oh, Rick's around. What's Rick's next thing? Had Randy and Batista up and coming. That's how you get Evolution, but that's for the next video. Okay. Let's go through briefly a bunch of people who was in the stable. Again, it's a big group. I mean, again, it's the Four Horsemen, so you think it'd be the four, but it's not always. There were times, I believe, if you look at Ric Flair and Ole Anderson were always in it. Like everyone else, whether it be injury pieces, whatever the case may be. But Ric Flair, always a leader, always around, except, you know, storylines that get kicked out and stuff like that. But those two are the two constants. You got other people added. Let me go into it. So you got Ric Flair, Arn, and Ole. You got Tully Blanchard, J.J. Dillon. That's the original, right? Then you got Lex Luthor joined in 87. You got Barry Windham, who was there from 88 to 89. Then he jumped back in 91. You had briefly, when they were a babyface stable, you had Sting in it. That didn't last very long. Obviously, you got Sid Vicious, Paul Roma, Brian Pillman Jr. I'll say Jr. Brian Pillman, rest in peace. Chris Benoit, rest in peace. You got Mongo McMichael, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. He replaced Arn at one point, I believe, and Dean Malenko, another one of my favorite wrestlers from oh my god, he has been on AEW, but I mean WCW. And obviously, you had all those wrestlers. You have, you know, a stable like the Four Horsemen. You got to have feuds, right? So who they feud with? Their most notable feuds are with Dusty Rhodes, of course, it's the 80s, Magnum TA, the Rock and Roll Express, which is Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Road Warriors, which if you don't know is Hawk and Animal, Sting and his various different groups of people and friends, because again, his Sting, and the NWO near the end in WCW, and near the end of the Four Horsemen, the beginning of the NWO. Those are two big stables. They basically define WCW. Without them, there is no WCW. It's basically the best way to look at it, if you ask me. But if I tell you to pick one feud, there's a feud in 87 and won feud of the year. I forgot, was it Sports Illustrated or Wrestling Observer? Who cares? It was the Four Horsemen versus the Superpowers, which is Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff. They were called the Superpowers because this during the Cold War, Dusty Rhodes is the American Dream, Nikita Koloff is Russian. Bam, the superpowers, because the two superpowers, global politics, wrestling, haha. And we had the Road Warriors. So the Road Warriors and the superpowers actually teamed up to be four people and then feud with the Four Horsemen. So again, go check some of those matches out. Check out that feud. We got a lot of good moments, good promos. We might do an in-depth on just that. Again, like I said, the next video is probably going to be Evolution because that's a natural progression from here to there. If you don't think it should be that, if you have one you want to see, you want me to check out, something you heard about, you don't have the time to research, but you might have the time to watch the video, you know, again, leave a comment. That's, you know, that's what your boy do. So again, next video, Evolution. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to this video, share it around. Check out other while you should watching. We got stuff on G1. I will be updating that soon at the end of the month for, you know, again, G1 is an ongoing thing with Japan. we update you guys every once in a while. That's what I do. So G1 coming up, other stables coming up. Go back and watch the original G1 explainer. If you never heard of the G1, go back and watch. Why you should be watching NXT, AEW, the back so forth. I've done a whole bunch of videos. Y'all go check those out. Till next time, you know.